let's open it up for some questions. But I
Yeah,
think
let's
we're
have
close.
some
I think
questions,
we're on the
comments.
cusp of it.
But great talk, LA. Very good. So yeah, if anybody has
thank you.
questions,
Thank you.
comments.
Thanks, Brian.
And thank you, Gordy, for setting this up.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm very happy to
Thanks,
help.
Gordy.
Gordy. Thank you, LA. You did an excellent job here of what you do.
Thanks, Steve.
And yeah, I've been listening to you since you ever started on any of the talk shows. I'm one of those individuals that I was sort of a unique person in that my parents were experiencers. And that was during the time before I was born and after I was born. And so I grew up in a family where we could speak about these things without ridicule. And this is back in the 50s. And since my childhood, I've had well over, the count now is probably closer to 80 sightings and things happening where lost time and even experience with other family member over 3.5 hours with a mothership and a UFO in Wisconsin. And even was able to get the neighbors up. So there was some witness to that. And that was back in 1980. But I'll tell you, when it comes right down to it, I believe what you say is the truth. And I've had experiences with paranormal and UFO activity, and I've lived in the state of Washington most of my life, but I actually was born in Wisconsin. And things happened back there, and in Washington. I've been in Oregon. I've lived in Oregon, and basically anywhere I have ever lived, I've had experiences. And I've had UFO sightings day, noon, night, wee hours of the morning. And things that have happened in my life is I've even had confirmation on the Tic Tac craft, to where in the Vancouver, Portland area, this was last year. And right now I don't have the actual date right out when I seen this, but it was about, I believe it was 10:30 at night. And I live north of Vancouver a ways in Vancouver, Washington, a place called Hazeldale. And I live in an area where the sky's open, so I can see just about anything that's coming in, north, south, east, and west. But because I've had experiences through the years and have had things taken from me, such as scoops and things that way, and beings that have shown themselves in different forms and portals open up. Anyway, I happened to just go outdoors where I live, and I looked up in the sky, and I felt this energy. And I told him right out, I said, I know you're up there. And all of a sudden, this big flash happens, a big white, bluish white flash in the sky. And it goes off to actually to the outer atmosphere of the Earth. And it had to be a huge craft, and it looked just like a Tic Tac. And I don't take any kind of medications, and I don't drink. And I was full faculties, meaning that well awake. And many times when I've had sightings and things happen to me, even in the middle of the night, I pinch myself knowing that I'm awake and seeing what I see and experiencing what I'm experiencing. So there's a confirmation. And when that Tic Tac went to the outer atmosphere, it was like, if you've ever seen how these portals open up, it was like a big portal opened up, and then I see this big white, I mean, that ship was huge, this bright white ship, and go right out, and then it just closed. So that's confirmation, you know. And the sad thing is, about times I've had cameras, I can never seem, time I get the camera, it goes away, whatever I'm looking at, and or I take a picture and the camera freezes up. I've had experiences all through my lifetime, and my parents did too, and they've been deceased for many years now. But I was one of those kids in school that knew of these things. And of course, growing up, a lot of times you just even mention UFO and people looked at you funny, and you know, like, you must be one of those nutcases or something that way. which is sad, but that's our society, or it can be that way. So anyway, I thought I'd just share.
I'd love to talk to you about it, maybe on an interview. I'm not gonna go up
Right.
to, but
I have
would-
drawings of things that have happened to me. And one of the things I'd like to try to get done, if it's even possible, is maybe go under hypnosis. And
Hypnosis.
because there's some things that I know happened, but I can't quite remember them, you know.
Sure.
And so
No, I'd
anyway,
love to talk to you more in depth.
okay.
This is the picture from the UFO. This is the shot. She's looking out, you know, there's the windshield. So she's in a car, and there's a flock of birds right there. You can see the flock of birds,
Yeah.
or it might, I'm not sure what that is, but there's the craft right there. And if I zoom back, we know where this is. My house is like right over in here someplace. So
Uh-huh.
it's actually, you know, let me show it to you again. You guys see that okay?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that is classic for sure.
Pretty crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah, Steve, I'd love to converse with you more, you know, maybe have you come on the show, or, you know, maybe we could do a Skype. And
Well,
could
what
record
I
it.
need to do is I have a lot of, in other words, through the years, I had like the little black book of sightings, and I did some. I've moved through the years, and some of that I need to regain where it's at and go through my notes, and then one of the things that I'd like to do too is find someone that's I can do some artistic work of drawing things, but there's some things if I someone that's good at that, I probably could get more detail to the things and even the beings I've seen. Because where I live in Vancouver is an actual unique area, because there's actually portal activity that's opened up where I've lived. And I've had even military helicopters fly over and just hover over the area, which is unusual. And I've seen the black helicopters years ago. And I've seen the orbs, all different shapes and sizes. And so it's even where the telephone company that does the service work has even sent their vans out to where I'm at, because they've gotten some really strange readings. So evidently I'm
Wow.
in an area that there's a uniqueness to it. Yeah. See that.
LA, this is Mimi here. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. I know that you've done a lot of work on the bloodlines, the Nephilim bloodlines, the Anakim and all the different ones. Well, I was abducted when I was 14 by these beings that now I believe were sort of in the Noah family, with white hair and long white hair and these shining faces that shone like the sun. That's basically what happened. I wasn't able to see their faces because they were so bright. But you know, over the years, I've reconsidered what kind of light beings they are. I mean, you know, angels are light beings. Even fallen angels are light beings. Even Lucifer. So anyway, I'm very interested in the Nephilim bloodline. If you could talk a little bit about that, that would really help me a lot in trying to figure out maybe who these people were that picked me up.
Well, you know, that's where all of us are looking for answers. I mean, I have my idea, you know, who, you know, it depends on who you talk to. I mean, if we sat down with just a group that we'd have here, we'd have some people that would agree with me. I think Gordy and I are on the same page, but others would have different opinions of what these things are, what they are. You know, I would defer to Al Matthews, who had an encounter with a hybrid, and Al became the centerpiece of my film. You know, UFOs are real, in their own words. You know, Al had an encounter with a hybrid being, and I've talked to other people since then that have had encounters with hybrid entities, and they seem, even Graham Hancock talks about that in his book Supernatural, that whoever these entities are, wherever they're from, they seem obsessed with mating, having sex with us, and creating a hybrid being. So you were abducted at 14. That's, you know, that's kind of when it happens, right around puberty. It's almost like, you know, bees to honey. I mean, they're after that. They're after something in your genetic line.
The funny thing about that is, well, at least in my memory of the abduction, which took about 3.5 hours, I was missing time about 3.5 hours. Obviously, I mean, I'm 67 now. That was when I was 14. So I've been trying to figure this out for 53 years. So, you know, it's been a lifetime of study, research, and I have changed my ideas about it, because when I was young, I thought, oh, you know, angels, light beings, you know, these, but now I'm moving towards a different point of view, definitely. But there wasn't a sexual aspect to what they did. In my case, what they told me is that I was their descendant, and that my soul originated on Mars. So, you know, if you study the work of Sitchin, he talks about the Gigi from Mars. So then I've been trying to put all this stuff together, and that's the people that I think these were, you know. So then that has to be some kind of a Nephilim bloodline. And I do think that the Nephilim are running this world now, that they are the men of renown, that they are the giants. These guys were about 7 feet tall, with very, very long hands and fingers, but they were not your typical gray alien. They were not like that at all. They really were light beings, but from Mars. So, you know, there has to be there has to be a bloodline that is an Igigi bloodline, and I was just hoping that you could talk a little bit about that to help me personally, you know,
Okay.
with that idea.
Let me just weigh in on it. Yeah, I'm familiar with Sitchin's work, and familiar with, you know, the Anunnaki and the whole deal. But in other words, we can go right down like this. So what people are calling Anunnaki may in fact be just nothing more than another name for fallen angels. I don't believe the Sitchin account is accurate and real. I believe that some parts of it may be, but I believe that what he calls the Anunnaki are in fact fallen angels. And when we say angel, people are, you know, right off the bat, if I say nefarious interdimensional entity, that's a better description, because that's what they are. Angel
Right.
just means messenger. That's what it means. It just means messenger. These guys are rebels. They left. They started an uprising. They hate us, and more than likely, you don't know, unless you've been regressed, you don't know whether there was a sexual aspect to it. I would be willing to bet in some sort of regression, you would find that they took ovum from you. They took eggs from you.
I've
Now,
had
were
3
you
regressions,
abducted
and so
after
far
that?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
You know, that so far there hasn't been a sexual aspect, but you know, it could be so deeply buried that I'm not remembering it. But one thing that did happen, and
Well,
Brian and I
think
have laughed about this.
Let me ask you something.
Sure.
Do you think they took eggs? So they did take eggs.
I've never thought about them taking eggs. I've never thought about it because I've never thought of it. It wasn't a physical kind of a, what people tell, that they were probed and all this. There was nothing like that in my abduction. But what there was, and Brian and I have laughed about this. I was with another girl, and she was the daughter of an army general in Ecuador. That's where it happened to me. And as we were running, we thought we were running away from the ship. The ship came. We saw it. We thought it was the moon. Then it got very, very big. It was like not a mothership, but very big, very bright ship. And as we were running away from it, she said, "Oh, they're going to get you because they're taking virgins that are under 15." And she was 15 and I was 14. And she was laughing at me as we were running. So that's the only clue as to whether there was some kind of a, that kind of aspect to it. But in all of my
was she taken
regressions
also?
there, when
Was
I've
she
had my
taken
regressions,
also?
I don't see her. I don't see her at all in the ship or the conversations or anything. So we were both missing because her family was looking for us for 3.5 hours. Obviously she was somewhere, but in my memory of it, we were not together in the ship. They gave me, environmental things about the earth, and they showed me the destruction of Mars. And it was that kind of thing.
Get my email from Brian and send me your
Okay.
address, and I'll send you this book for free. Okay, I just sent it to you. So
Okay, thank you so much, LA. Thank you.
send me, get my email from Brian. Shoot me your address. We'll get this out to you. I think
All
it's
right.
important that you read that.
Okay.
And then if you've got questions at that point.
Well, I'm in Mexico at the moment. I don't know how much longer because,
Okay.
the draconian laws are starting to happen in Canada and they're asking people to come home. So I may have to go home early rather than in April this year. I don't know yet what's going to happen, but I'm close to Puerto
What
Vallarta
part of
right
Mexico
now.
are you in?
Pardon?
Puerto Vallarta, yeah.
North of Puerto Vallarta, yeah. And that's why I'm all hot and sweaty because it is hot. It's warm here. It's nice. But I may have to go home, and it's sad, but Canada is saying, the travel advisory is that the airplanes might stop coming and you might get stuck there for a long time. So I'm having to reconsider whether I want to stay or not. But yeah, but you can send it to my house because eventually I'll go home.
Okay, what about Rolf? Did you have a question, Rolf?
Maybe, yes. You were mentioning the elongated skulls. And I've seen before it became fashionable, maybe some 20 years ago, some skulls, elongated skulls in Ica. But a lot of people are talking about binding the heads. Now, I know some other culture was binding something, but that was to make it smaller. So why would binding a head create more bone and elongate? What is your thought?
Give me a second.
I've actually had Brian Forrester on my show about that. He's like one of the world experts. He lives in Peru, and he said the brain capacity is 30% longer, so it wasn't elongated through binding.
Right, right.
This is a model of the skull. It's a
Right.
one-to-one model.
Yeah.
And we show this, I just produced a new film. It's episode 6 and on the trail of a Nephilim series. I believe what you're looking at here, and I'll be on Coast to Coast talking about this next week, is not human. It is not a human being. It's, and I would even go far as to say that this, Brian, can you switch me to full screen? Because I'm just seeing myself in one little.
Well, you're full screen when you talk. It's automatically goes to full screen.
All right. So when you look right there and you look at the orbits in the eyes, they are 30% larger than a normal human being. Now, you can bind your head to your blue in the face, and you're not going to create this. You're not going to take the placement of the foramen magnum, which is right here. Normally that would sit in this area. It's pushed way back to the posterior part of the skull. There's no sagittal suture in the skull here. The pupillary distance between the eyes, which is like right here, okay, is about 42 it's centimeters. Centimeters are, I never can do, when people go centimeters, it drives me nuts. Which is the smaller, millimeter or centimeter?
Millimeter is smaller.
Yeah, it's
tenths.
10 millimeters is
So-
1 centimeter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
10 to 1.
These are
And-
about 40. The
1 inch
pupillary
is about-
distance here.
Yeah, 1 inch is about 25
Yeah.
millimeters.
Okay. The pupillary distance here is about 42 millimeters. On a normal human being, it's about 65 millimeters,
Right.
between 62 and 65. So we've got genetic anomalies in these skulls. The fact that this is 30% larger, the orbits, than a normal human being, they probably had night vision, according to the optometrist that we interviewed. Now, it's not conclusive because, you know, we need more and more people to weigh in on it. We're at the point where the universities will not take my money. In other words, they won't do any more DNA testing. We've got a whole other batch of samples where we could send in. We can't find a lab who will touch them. Once we talk about Peruvian mummies, they don't have anything to do with us. So we got blown out of the water, which is absolute discriminatory. I'm going to tell this on Coast next week, but in my opinion, and when you watch the film, you'll come away with the same thing. These are not human beings. These are some sort of genetic anomaly, some sort of a hybrid entity. What's interesting is there is one of the Nephilim tribes that one of them is called the Anakim, which means long neck. And in order to balance the head, because of the placement of the foramen magnum, where it actually is, you'd have to have a longer neck. Otherwise, and the doctors talk about this in the film. This guy would be looking down like this because of the placement of the foramen magnum. But you put a longer neck on him, and it's going to compensate for the fact that the foramen magnum is all the way in the back. You cannot create this, and I'm quoting one of our chiropractors in the film, Dr. Malcolm Warren, you cannot create this through pressure, through cranial deformation. In fact, we went up to Vancouver 2 years ago, and we interviewed a woman whose grandfather had been presented with an elongated skull from a Native American chief up there. And once we took it out, we photographed it. The difference between that skull and this skull was just glaring. There was no difference in the foramen magnum. The sagittal suture was still there. The orbits in the eyes were still normal, as everything else was all normal. The zygomatic arch was normal. Was it elongated? Yeah, it was elongated, but it wasn't anything like the skulls from Paracas. I truly believe that what they are is a remnant of one of the Nephilim tribes, specifically either the Anakim, which means long necks, or perhaps the Horites, who we know were cave dwellers. That's what it means. They dwelt in caves. And we know, we had another piece of information that came out last May. I was down in Peru with Timothy Alberino, and we went out to this place called the Reserve, which is, it's like one of the most inhospitable places on the earth. Nothing grows there. I mean, there's not a green thing anywhere. It's that barren. And yet the Pacific is right. You know, you get up on a bluff and there's the ocean, the beautiful bay, teeming with sea life. And we went to these places where these elongated skull people had built their homes. Well, you would think with a view like this, right, be incredible. Not at all. They're underground. they're underground. And in fact, what they did is they took whalebone and created this like an arch with the whalebone, covered that with sealskin, then put mollusk shells on top of that. The place must have stunk to high heaven, and it must have been really hot. And then they went down into the earth 2-3 stories, and that's where they dwelt. And I looked at the archaeologists and I said, well, how did they see down there? Have there been evidence of torchlight? He said, no. So at that point in time, I didn't know about the pupillary distance, the PD, and I didn't know about the orbits being about 30% larger, which essentially gave these entities night vision. That's why they lived underground. This thing must have been really freaky looking. When you go to the Julio Teo Museum and you see these goofy portrayals of these elongated skulls, and they have all these head wrappings, and they have blue skin that they painted on, and they look like a bunch of white people. It's so disingenuous. It's just unbelievable, utterly disingenuous. So that's my take on the elongated skulls.
Do we have any bones, other bones that go with the skulls? Like,
Do we have any what? The body? Is that?
Yeah, the rest of the body, yeah. We don't have that?
There are, but the Peruvian people, I've seen several skeletons. Yeah, they're not giants, but, and this is why, when you go down to Peru, everything goes to a complete stop. Nothing happens. They're really not interested in having anything happen. They were interested in our DNA result, which showed that we did 58 samples. Our team, 58 samples. We are the only team that I'm aware of that had the funding to do that and process 58 samples. Out of the 58 samples, about 28 of them sequenced. And, you know, out of the 28 samples, many of them showed a Middle Eastern or European mitochondrial DNA origin. And that rewrites history. End of story. You know, the skeptics can jump up and down. They can say contamination. You can say whatever you want. We did the work. We did the science. It's not contaminated. How many samples do we have to have before you start going, gee, maybe something's going up here? But they're not interested in that because it goes against the prevailing paradigm. There is a cover-up, and they call themselves scientists. You just don't like our results. The Peruvian government didn't like our results. The Ica Museum didn't like our results. The labs that we use in America didn't like our results. The only lab that will process our stuff is the Paleo DNA lab in Canada. Bully for them. They're the only people, but they don't have the sophisticated equipment to get nuclear DNA. So we could run the samples again with them, but it's not going to do anything. It's not going to give us the nuclear, and that's what we're trying to find out, what the nuclear DNA says.
Right. Okay, on another.
I have one little question about that. I had to get up, so I didn't hear. I wanted to know in your DNA samples if you found any DNA that's not human in those skulls.
No, we never got the nuclear DNA, and that's the missing half of the equation.
That's the nuclear.
These artifacts are, these artifacts are about 2,000 years old, and they're highly degraded. And even coaxing mitochondrial DNA out of it proved to be quite a task. But it could be done. But you know, it costs money, funds, and you got to have a lab that's willing to do it. And there are no labs that we can find that will test our stuff. We are officially anathema. So much for science, right?
Well,
hey guys, I gotta go. It's getting late here. It's almost 9:30. Let's wind it down in another 5 minutes, okay?
Oh, can I ask you one question, Alabe? And we have a local abductee here, Jeff Selver. We've done like 14 hours of videos with him. He's been abducted over 20 times since the 1990s, and he's had a good relationship with this gray. He calls it elder, and he says that they told him a lot, and he's developed a good relationship. And he said, you know, they came to Earth and they approached human leadership, and the human leadership basically rejected them. So he said, well, we can't do it this way, we'll do it our way. They want to help humanity. So he said the whole abduction program is part of this. And he said what was told about the abduction program. They're trying to up-level humanity genetically and spiritually. That they have quite a lot of spiritual insight, and they want to bring us up spiritually. And he was introduced to this Federation of Planets. He met one Palladian, like a tall Nordic, and he actually met a mantis, and he's got his gray elder. So he feels quite positive about it, and they spiritually developed him. And he goes into a lot of detail, like as an abductee, he's one of the best in the world for the level of astonishing detail. He's writing a book about it. And so he's got a positive feeling, but it seems quite profound. He feels like their goal is to bring humanity to this Federation of Planets, and he said they're connected with, they said they have friends all over the galaxy. So he's got this positive vision. Like we know that the Greys lie to people, but he's been with them since the early 1990s. He's developed a good trustful relationship. So until I met Jeff, I didn't know, but now I'm quite convinced that I've spent over 10 hours with him one-on-one. I believe his experience is for real. So he's kind of convinced me at least, and he hasn't seen any reptilians. Like I know Al Matthews, I had a class in 2009 at the US, and that's when the US school where I first met Al Matthews, and he joined our UFO meetup. But he was approached basically by a reptilian, like her eyes shifted, the woman who jumped on him. So, but Jeff's never had a problem with any reptilians. He's never seen a reptilian. So I guess he's been lucky. We've met abductees who've had negative experiences. Jeff says has been good. Yeah, so I just want to get your comment, at least share that with you. We've got on our Vancouver UFO meetup, we got 14 hours of videos from on the Vancouver UFO YouTube channel.
Look, I've talked to abductees, and I've heard this over and over again. I've heard this from other abductees, that they're chosen, they're taken, and the same thing. We're trying to bring, and I've been saying this for years. This is called the coming great deception. That's exactly how they're going to count it. We're gonna give you a DNA upgrade, and we're going to show you an advanced form of spiritualism. I've been saying this for 30, 40 years now. They're not going to come and go, "Hi, I'm the Antichrist." That's not what they're going to do. You don't win a bunch of people over that way. You tell them that we've got a DNA upgrade. We were your creators. We created all life on this earth. We have a special mission for you, which what they always do. You're chosen. We have a special mission for you. You're above, and they always feed the ego, and people just suck it up. And in the end game, the one woman I was able to get out of it, she heard me on Coast one night. She emailed me, and I just told her straight, this is what's going on. And the light bulb went off somehow. Somehow the light bulb went off, and she got it. She saw through the deception. And, she just, and even after I haven't spoken to her in years, but even though she got out of it, like Al Matthews, she could still sense when they were around. She knew, because she'd been taken so many times. There was a relationship. If I met with your friend Brian, I would, and I mean, I'd be able to, I don't know, not sway him over to my point of view, but I could say, look, and next time you're taken, just ask them this. Just ask them this one simple question and see how they react to it. So Ralph, what's your question?
Well, it's not as much a question. Well, it's a huge question, but I just tell you that I had several UFO sightings over my lifetime, but the last one, I shot down 2 UFOs in Vancouver here. Do you want to hear the story? Do you have time, or do you want me to email it to you?
I'd love to have you email so I could just read it. When you shot them down, were you able to collect any of the material?
No, I think it fell into the ocean between Vancouver and North Vancouver, both of them. While one was stationary, the second one tried to run away, but I got him anyway. And I got him with what many people are using, trying to attract UFOs, which is a laser.
Oh, very interesting.
Well, just
Yeah,
quickly.
please send me the email. Guys, I gotta go. It's getting late here, but
Yeah, well,
Thank
thanks for
you
coming,
so
LA. Thank you
much.
kindly. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being with us.
Thanks a
Yeah.
lot.
thank you.
And
Yeah,
I
the
enjoy,
UFO
Thank you,
disclosure part
LA.
was very good. Yeah, thanks for the aspects of UFO disclosure. This is a very good talk. Really appreciate it, LA. You're welcome back anytime.
and I enjoyed
Okay,
your
guys.
visit.
God bless you all. Take care.
God bless you.
Okay.
Thank you. God bless you.